Hello everyone, it's episode 23. I'm talking about my mom, the animal abuser. Usually people who abuse children, they also abuse animals. People who become evil and do evil things to people, frequently they started out by doing heinous things to animals and then later they segued into targeting humans, so it goes with the territory. People who abuse animals abuse people, people who abuse people abuse animals. So my mother was an animal abuser as well as a abuser of me. I'm talking about a chapter of my life that is very sad, and when I think about this I frequently break down crying, so I might cry, I don't know. When I get to the worst part, I might be crying, I don't know. So my dog has an accident, a car hits him, his hip is broken, the vet puts in a pin, the pin sticks out of his hip. The vet says come back like in a week or 2 weeks, I don't remember what it was, maybe it was 10 days, I can't remember all these details. I mean, I was like maybe 10 years old or 11 at the most, something like that, and maybe I was a little older. It's so hard to remember so far back. I mean, I'm 73 years old now, so this is way, 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 way back. All right, so now, with my dog is now chained up with this pin in his hip, which must have been excruciating. And the next day, my aunt and uncle come, and I am told I must go with them because they have to take the baby of the family and I have to be the caretaker of the baby. So I don't know why it was decided that it had to be, no matter how I begged, pleaded, and said I'm not going. I was forced to go. Forced. So, instead of leaving me there for a week like she promised, she leaves me there for 6 weeks. And my aunt finally calls her and says, pick up your kids. She's had enough of the visit, which I don't blame her. I mean, it's ridiculous. My mother was a very devious, dishonest, lying, cheating, stealing person. So if she tells my aunt, I'm going to leave the kids there for a week, or she tells me you'll be there for a week, she doesn't care. It's her, whatever's good for her. So if she wants to leave us for 8 weeks, she would have, had my aunt not called her and said, pick them up. She would have left us there for 2 months, against all her promises. So now I come in and she's brainwashing me on the way home, because it's a long trip. It's like 45 minutes to an hour or something from North Salem, New York to near Freehold, New Jersey, to the farm. So now she tells me on the way home how she was unjustly taken to court by the Aspca, by an officer that came and saw the condition of the dog and took her to court. So she also tells me a few other things, how evil Jimmy and another member of our household was, and they wouldn't weed the Holy Virgin's rose garden. She was very good at gardens and growing. She was a genius at it, and she made a beautiful rose garden with hundreds of hybrid tea rose bushes and a big statue of the Holy Virgin Mary. And she said the other kids, they refused to weed the Holy Virgin's garden. Oh, back to the Aspca. She said that the way she got off, and they didn't prosecute her for anything, is the cops. She worked, my mom at that time, other members of the family worked there. In fact, the whole family practically worked there. Thorne's Milk Bar, she worked there. So I must have been older than, had to be older than 10. I must have been at that time like 13, probably 13, I bet you. Or 14 even, 13 or 14 even. So she says the cops came in, one or more of the cops came in and swore what a wonderful woman she was. She had everyone brainwashed. Why people believed her, I just don't know. maybe because she's an adult, I don't know. Because if I said anything, I don't know if they would believe me. So the cops said she was a good woman, raised all these kids by herself. They didn't, they didn't tell the truth about her. They didn't tell anything about her that was the truth. They just told what they knew or what they were told, And she got off. She got off. As soon as we got home, I made a beeline for Tsulis, my dog. My poor dog, who adored me, and I adored him. He was so traumatized by that pin. This was 6 weeks. The pin was still in his hip. She never took him back to the vet to take out the pin. Obviously, that's why the ASPCA got her. And I'll tell you the story about how the ASPCA happened to go by, and it had to do because of me. A week or more earlier, it just so happened I was visiting my neighbor, Helen. Helen was a friend, and I tried to get anything I could to get out of the house because my mother wouldn't let me go anywhere or do anything for a while. It went on for like 9 months. I wasn't allowed to leave the house. I used to visit Helen a lot, especially when she wasn't home. I mean, when she was home, I couldn't leave or anything, I was a slave in the house, but I used to go visit Helen. So one day when I visited Helen, this lady, an ASPCA officer, was there. So I think this ASPCA officer came to visit me. Because we got a little bit friendly. And that's when she saw the condition of the dog, you see, you understand? So it was connected with me, and I think that was God's angel allowed that to happen that way, to try to stop my mother. But it didn't stop my mother. It didn't cure anything. They should have, if they had gotten an award, they would have seized the dog, you see, if they had won. But my mother won because of the cops testifying for her. Now, I will explain later how she paid back the cops, how she betrayed them. But we'll finish the story for now. So now, I come in, poor Tsulis. He was so traumatized, in such pain, that he did not even acknowledge me. Usually he acted like I was the person he loved more than anyone on earth. He could hardly even acknowledge me. He was in such pain. How I pitied him. How I pitied him. After I greeted him and did the best I could, there was nothing I could do. He had to go to the vet. He had to have that pin removed. What could I do? My mother didn't do it. What could I do? The ASPCA didn't get her. What could I do? Who could I call? Who could I complain to? I then went to the rose garden. I should have worn gloves, but I didn't think of it. Maybe we didn't have any. I don't remember. And I weeded. It took me like 3 hours. The Holy Virgin's rose garden. I mean, I was bleeding up to here on both arms because, okay, roses have thorns. But I got the whole thing weeded out in 3 hours. It was a big garden. It had about a couple hundred hybrid tea rose bushes. I came back in the house, and I remember, I'll never forget my brother and another member of our household, the way they looked at me. They didn't say, hi, how was your trip? How was your visit? They didn't say, we missed you, how are you? They just looked at me like I was dirt. They gave me the evil eye. They just looked down on me. It's hard. It's like when you look down on someone like they're nothing. Like, that's how they looked at me. Not a hello, a contemptuous evil eye. And the house was quite clean, with all of them together for once, instead of just me alone cleaning it. They all got together and finally cleaned the house, and the house was pretty clean. So they were looking at me like saying, we didn't need you to clean the house. Look at how clean the house is. Yeah, it was fairly clean for a broken down old farmhouse. Yeah, it was pretty clean. To be continued. Back in a minute.